Well, Dad started with rotational grazing back in 1998. We haven't sprayed any chemicals or had any additives to our pastures since. A lot of what I learned wasn't even in agriculture. I learned kind of more of the process side from school and coaching baseball and sports. One of the most pivotal things that make this whole process work, because they take that manure and they disperse all those nutrients back into the soil. We kind of create our process through our observations, and then we know how this area is going to react based on how we graze it, because we've been doing it for a while. That's the thing, like in the sports world, you don't look at the scoreboard each play. So, you know, this is a play for us, then this is a play for us, this is a play for us. We're not coming right back 2 days later and looking at the scoreboard of it. You know, we're looking at the scoreboard 3 years down the road.
So you're Josh.
That's it.
And this is Harris Homeplace.
Correct.
You've got mainly beef, pork, and chicken?
Grass-fed beef, woodland raised pork, and pasture poultry.
Okay.
It's where we're at right now, so
yeah.
Always looking for new adventures and
okay.
adapt to the market and what comes up next. But the grass-fed beef has been our bread and butter, so the pork and chicken is a newer venture for us the last 3 years.
Okay.
We've added those.
So how long have you been doing grass-fed beef then?
Oh, Dad started with the rotational grazing back in 1998.
Really?
Yeah, so we haven't sprayed any chemicals or had any additives to our pastures since 1998.
That's
and we've been doing the rotations and managing our grazing pretty intensively since then.
Your dad, do you
Yes.
mind if I ask you
Sure.
questions about that?
Sure.
So you were doing managed intensive grazing grass-fed beef in the 80s. That is an interesting world, to be doing something so different in the 80s, where it was chemical fertilizers coming out, put them on a feedlot, get them on a bunch of grain, get them fat, make it fast, take them to the processor, maybe even ship them out west. Why did you start doing it that way?
Well, basically that was just a commodity avenue, and it was a losing avenue. Was a real bottom line to it. It's at a cattlemen's meeting, and we kept having all these chemical guys come and present their stuff, and somebody asked me, said, well, would you eat what you raise? And that hit home. It's like, I don't think I would. So that's really driving to change and the look. And then we get into the grass genetics and grass-based foraging. You know, we see it was night and day. It was like, this is the way to go. So we've just been going that way ever since.
Did you get much pushback at that point? Because, I mean, that was like the go big, go home era.
Well, I didn't get pushback because I separated myself from that world, and just dove into Stockman Grass Farmer and Allen Nation and the whole soak up every page of it kind of thing, and you start networking with those individuals. So it wasn't it's just they did their thing and I did mine, and nobody really knew what I was doing. So especially early on, so there wasn't no pushback. It was just, we had to find our way with the grass.
For sure. Like, were you already selling retail at that point, or were you just selling into commodities?
At the beginning, we were just doing commodity like everybody else would go to Stockyard on Thursday night and they sell on Friday,
Right.
So, but no, once we started changing, then we started doing a little more direct marketing to the individual customers with grass.
And that was in the 90s then?
1998, early 2000,
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love...
And we weren't doing retail. I guess it was just individual customers. They'd buy a quarter and a half, quarter and a half. We weren't down to the retail cut size.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. I love talking with the founding farmers. And I say founding, but the ones who caught on to this movement that's going on right now very early on, that was very different than your mainstream production model.
Yeah.
And I love to hear like your insight and why you decided to do that, and what really set you apart in your why.
We were definitely pioneers then of that whole beginning of the industry. So it was kind of fun to see the challenge. But I worked the job during the day also.
Okay.
So
it wasn't like your livelihood depended on
it. No.
But it was.
No. But the farm had to stand on itself, so the farm did depend on it.
Okay.
not necessarily our personal life, but for the farm to exist, it had to be sustainable. So and we did that by cutting out fertilizer costs, and utilization of diesel fuel went down. We don't produce hay. We buy what little hay we use, we buy it in.
Okay.
So, which brings organic matter to our farm.
Right. So then you took that and Josh started doing it. Josh, when did you come on to the farm?
Well, I mean, I grew up in it. So
I guess,
that's what's kind of funny.
Yeah.
When he kind of made the change, I was only 7 years old. So, you know, I kind of tell folks, I'm like, yeah, I'm a little different because I'm like a second generation at it. So, you know, I've kind of grown up in it, and I hear a lot of the conventional stuff, and I have to kind of teach myself that side of things because I'm so used to this side of things. That
Like what?
well, just how that whole system operates, because we've been so disconnected from the main system and how it functions and the markets and all of that. Like I can't even remember the last time we bought any fertilized chicken manure. Like I don't have any memory of it. So like that side of it and how that thought process works is different for me. When my thought process is just grown up with this and, you know, expanded on it now, and you know, we chase different paths and avenues now, and how do we improve what we've been doing for 20 years? That, you know, it's a little different in that regard.
So then you're able to bring on, it's just interesting then, like the perspective that you have, that you've been here and you can go to like the research side and look at the conventional models.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pull any of that information onto your farm?
We'll pull any information that's valuable.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of what I learned wasn't even in agriculture. I learned kind of more of the process side from school and coaching baseball and sports than I did going to any kind of ag seminar or studying agriculture or anything like that. So,
What do you explain that a little bit more to me?
So basically, and this is kind of how we operate and how I think it's kind of meant to operate, is that, you know, you create your process and it's your base functioning of the farm. But it's just the, you know, creating the base process. So you create your system that functions in its own. And it's just small, repeatable actions that you can do, you know, daily, weekly, that, you know, that time in place, it's not going to have a big effect, but over years, it has a big effect, and it creates a system that can function within itself. So, so that's what we strive for now. And, you know, it's not so much, well, let's really change the land and all that, even though we are doing it on some land we've picked up. But where we're at now, it's kind of like, how do we improve the function and make it really flourish without us really involved too much?
Right.
And it's incredible to see it work.
Well, let's see it work. We were gonna go to your pigs.
Yeah, so our pigs are,
woodland?
yeah, we call them woodland raised pigs,
Okay.
because we don't raise them in the pasture. We've been thrilled with how it's reacted with our woodland areas, and we have a lot of oak and hickory trees, and so they get a lot of acorns and hickory nuts, and there's all sorts of grubs and worms in here, and they can really dig through here and search for things. And we came back this winter, we actually took a break from our pigs and we redid our fencing. So we put in 2 strands of high tinsel here, like 8 inches off the ground. And we incorporated more of our woods down along the creek down there. So we're gonna be able to move much more efficient. Let's put some strings up of our poly wire and we'll manage them that way. And
come on.
We found it was completely inefficient. So,
Okay.
so we were like, okay, we need to create an exterior fence and then pull across it, much like we do our cattle. So we're really just mimicking that model. And we've adjusted our water now, and just the whole system's got much more efficient. But we can walk in here, and they were here last week in this little section here. So you can see the impact they have on it. And now they're down right next to us here.
Oh, here they come.
Yeah, so you can kind of get a good, a good idea of the impact they can have. We don't move them as quick as our cattle. You know, we'll keep them in. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a much better model, much better equipment to use water-wise.
Yeah.
Because they won't create a big wallow with it or anything like that. It keeps it much cleaner.
Absolutely. I didn't say that. Be careful.
Well.
We used a
They haven't yet.
food-grade barrel and put nipples on it. And we had one pig that would just sit there and let it run.
Well, we like the breed that we've been utilizing. So
What breed is
it's
that?
Old Spot and Berkshire mix.
Okay, that's what I
But
was
their
thinking.
personalities are great. We've had some other breeds, and Some of them were just destructive. Man, they tore everything up. And then some of them were super high energy and hard to catch and manage. These are very calm. They root pretty well. We like the meat off of them is incredible. So it's such a huge difference when you have pork from this kind of system compared to what you get out of the grocery store. All this has been leaf cover. So this is where we've raised them the last couple of years. And we've been doing this method and going up here, and then we come back around that way. I mean, you can see all the cool season grasses that are coming up within our trees now. And
did you have that before?
No, it looked like that down there, where it's just all matted leaves all the time. So, and that's pretty typical for hardwoods here in central North Carolina to look like that. So,
but it's not overgrown either. I mean, it's not like it's not a bushy forest.
No.
So have you done impact before on the farm?
The cattle have had access to this area. Down there, you get a lot more little saplings and stuff like that. And we're gonna run our pigs down there now, and that's where we're going next. So we'll see how that goes.
Did you anticipate getting into other livestock? Like, did you ever have that thought of, oh, we should get into other species? Maybe we could put them out in the woods like this?
Yeah, the long-term goal was not to be a mono species.
Okay.
We were wanting to get other additional species, and kind of what Josh is talking about, we're trying to improve the soil health. That's the bottom line.
Right.
So we do that through multi-species now, and between the poultry and the pigs, and you can see what they're doing, improving that soil. So,
like, when you bought this farm, was that back in the 80s? When did you?
This is a family farm.
Okay.
So I'm the 5th generation on this farm.
Wow.
And he's the 6th.
So before you, how was it managed? It's relatively the same then?
Oh Lord, no. We raised tobacco, a little bit of row cropping of wheat and corn and that kind of thing on a small scale.
For sure.
And we always had, 10 or 12 beef cows. But as far as rotating and doing all that, none of that was in there.
What has the reaction to the land been since you've kind of gotten away from row cropping, tobacco, and now you're rotating?
What we've seen, a good example would be right back here where we started.
Look at it?
No, it's just pasture. Where we first started doing the rotation, and we did a soil sample a couple years ago. We had like 8.4% organic matter in it.
Wow.
Which was that's the wow point.
That is a huge
that we jump around and get giddy when we hear that kind of stuff.
Do you know what it was beforehand?
No, we didn't measure organic matter. Didn't know what it was when we first started.
Can you put it was probably near the
2 or 3%? Yeah.
Was it just clay?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And for you to be on this for so many generations, and then have Josh come in and add to the enterprise, I think that's really cool. But I assume you do as well.
Oh yeah, we're a good team.
Yeah.
We're always brainstorming some idea, and he's brought the social media side to it and the website and developed all that, which has developed revenue streams. So
absolutely.
So it all comes together. But
yeah.
So these steers, do they come from your mama cows?
Yeah.
I assume then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you keep the heifers back?
Yeah, or we sell them private treaty to other breeders. The bulk of what we do is breeding stock.
Okay.
Our beef side is kind of like a byproduct of our breeding stock operation. So
interesting.
We saw it as an opportunity of like, hey, we've got steers here. It was also partly driven by nutrition for our family. Like, we need to raise the meat we eat. Have all this acreage, like let's take advantage of it and raise what we're going to eat. So,
for sure.
So that kind of pushed it a little more, and then we got into, back into selling it, and then it was like, okay, well, if we can sell the beef, then that gives us opportunities to sell the pork and chicken, and then we add more income to the farm at that point. So that's a big reason why we do the beef side as well. It would be much more convenient and easier for us to just do our mama cows and sell our steers to somebody else to finish them, but we like the challenge. But we also like the beef too, and it's really rewarding to hear what people give us feedback on with the beef. So
yeah, absolutely.
We get a lot of really, really good reviews.
That's awesome.
A lot of good health reviews too, which is even cooler.
Sure. Here they come.
Yeah, it's funny. The cows they'll keep you in check. They know when it's time. So this is just a beautiful place.
Oh wow! Look at the pond down there. Small mountain views. Do you call that a mountain or a hill?
It's a hill. We
That's
ain't
a
got no
hill.
mountains.
Yeah,
around
that's what I wondered. Coming from Indiana, well, even my Aunt Sarah living down here for so long, I'd say, wow, it's a beautiful mountain. She's like, Liv, that's a hill. So you had that gate padlocked.
here. Yeah.
Why?
I mean, so there's expensive product in here.
Do you have like theft issues or?
Not theft. We've had trespassing before, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Our community's changed a lot in the last 20 years, and it's about to change a lot more.
How so?
Development-wise.
Okay.
We're under a lot of pressure. Just more people around. It's part of our just comfort system too.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, and if it's a half
it's
mile.
good. Just hey, it's locked up. We know it's padlocked. We know they're pretty secure. It's not like, I don't know. We don't really, feel threat of anybody coming and taking animals by any means, but folks sometimes like to go places they don't need to go, and they leave a gate open, and that's a big issue. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and we're gonna move them on the other side over there.
Okay. So what breed do you have? You said that your dad said, getting genetic lines, or maybe you said that, getting genetic lines.
Yeah, we raise South Pole cattle.
Okay.
They're a 4-way cross between Red Angus, Hereford, Barzona, and Centipole. They were started by Teddy Gentry down in Alabama.
Yep.
And bred for the southeast hot humid summers. So we got our first ones in 2006. So we've had them for quite a while.
Is it closed herd?
No. I mean,
Okay.
we'll buy in animals every now and then.
Okay.
It just depends. We have recently because we picked up more pasture. So we're like, okay, we need to expand our numbers because we need grazing impacts. So,
Right.
So we went and bought some that way. But most of the time we keep everything. It's fairly closed, but not completely.
Yeah, for sure.
So they do really well in our environment though. As you can see, we're primarily fescue.
Yeah.
Fescue's not fun for cows a lot of times.
No.
When it's 95 degrees outside and like 90% humidity, it's pretty cool to come out here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and see them all grazing.
Yeah. Isn't that
they're-
awesome?
yeah,
We
they're-
had that. We had 8 calves at one point. 4 were Herefords, 4 were black. And the black ones are panting and just having a rough time. And those Herefords were out grazing, and it was like 100 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see.
Yeah, it's a big difference. So
These guys are ready.
once we brought some in, the first ones we bought 10 heifers and a bull, and we brought them back, and it was just night and day difference between we had Gelby Angus bouncers. The fly load was just, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Performance was so much better. Their ability to graze, their ability to handle fescue, handle the heat.
So you've got an automatic water right there.
Yep. Yeah, we have frost-free drinkers on pretty much every pasture. Place them strategically, and then on the lease we've done some creative water solutions over there. So
Okay.
a little different, but still effective. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we love using those things. So,
Yeah. That's like my favorite sound.
yeah, that's what we love. Just sit out here and listen to them.
Uh-huh.
You just hear them, they grab with their tongue and just rip the grass.
We'd say, I'm gonna record that and make it my ringtone. just listening to cows pull grass.
But this is a really good example of how we manage our grazing too.
Yeah.
So they were in this area for, we pushed them a little more than 24 hours in here, just because we had a water issue yesterday, and
Okay.
we weren't able to get up here yesterday afternoon, so.
But it's not overgrazed.
Nah, it'll be okay, but it gives you some leeway there. And then we've come through there, and you can already see the regrowth that's happening.
And
back
that was
there.
just 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
2-3 days ago. So, so we'll keep moving this way with them, but we love to get them in nice lush grass, and then they'll go through and they'll eat and they'll poop and leave all that behind, and
Yeah.
they'll trample the excess stuff, and we get good ground coverage and manure coverage, and then we let the dung beetles do their thing. This is just what's so incredible though.
This regrowth,
yeah,
for sure.
and the insect populations and the bird populations that you see and all the life that you see in it. That's what really makes it cool.
And I love how when we were farming, people would say, oh, but the way you're doing it is so much work. Like, it's so much harder. And I'm like, you just move those cows and you just opened a gate. Like, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't really see the extra work in it too much.
But it's been cool to watch the change of species too in our
In your
pastures.
pastures?
Yeah, because like where we're going, it's just fescue, and it's pretty poor fescue at that.
Yeah.
Like you can tell a difference in this compared to that, but also, I mean, you just walk through here and there's clover, there's vetch, there's orchard
Yeah.
grass, there's all sorts of stuff coming up.
Like we see the fescue because it's cool
Yeah.
season and that's what's coming up. But you get down below and you start seeing the extra
Yeah, like,
stuff
there's
too.
some vetch right there.
Yep, yep.
But even around the home place where we've been doing it for so long, like we get eastern gamma grass just all over the place voluntarily. We had Timothy grass come up voluntarily, and it's continuing to
Yeah.
grow and proliferate from there, and you know, just all sorts of stuff like that. So
That's really cool.
that's really neat to see when you start paying attention to it.
Yeah.
But it's just hard it's hard to deny how that it works. When you come out here and you see it, and you see the recovery process and how quickly it can regenerate itself, I mean, I don't know how people can deny that it works.
What do you think is the reasoning behind people not getting behind this? I mean, you've grown up with it your whole life, so you don't, I guess, like you weren't really there for the drastic change, but I'm sure you know people who farm more conventionally.
Oh yeah.
And what do you think is holding them back?
You know, it's scary to change wholesale like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. You've been
Especially
doing
with tight
something for so
margins.
long, and it's pretty tight margins, and you know, you don't know how your farm's going to react to it. So I can definitely see why people hold up on doing it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, from the education standpoint, a lot of our ag education is based through certain channels, and you know, folks are going to kind of follow what they're told by people that supposedly know more than them, and it's tough to break away from the system. It really is. So, and there's some things that, you know, the conventional side does well too. So
Yeah.
so it's kind of, you know, I think there's a lot of gray area in it. It's not just black and white. So that's like grazing. People think it's just, oh, I have to give them so much per pound in here. And it's like, no, because there's different times of years. Like during a drought, we may spread them out more.
Yeah.
If there's not a lot of forage, we'll spread them out more. You know, if we don't have good water access, we'll give them a big space where they can stay for 3 days. So it's not so black and white. There's a lot of nuances to it. But
That's a really good point, because even when we were farming and we had our YouTube channel, we'd have people like wanting me to calculate the square footage
Yeah.
that we had for the number of animals that we had. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell you like what it is today.
yeah.
But it's not going to be the same tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I might mess up. Maybe I accidentally give them too much of an area, and I'm like, well, I probably should have not given
Yeah.
them so much, and
Yeah,
should have made it a little shorter.
We get a lot of questions on social media, and like there was one question. It was like, well, I got this many acres. How many head can I put on? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, what's your grass like? What kind of water do you have? You know, what types of grasses do you have?
Your
And-
cattle. What kind of genetics
and,
do you have?
Yeah, what are your cows? How big are they? How small? You know,
Right.
that changes the equation too.
Right.
And that's part of why we love the South Poles. They're more of a medium frame cow, so they're much more efficient compared to like a big Angus cow out here.
Yeah.
Because we're still getting a, you know, 500-600 pound calf at weaning, somewhere in that range, and you know, compared to their relative intake of what they need to produce that compared to one cow. So we can run 3 of them compared to 2 of the bigger ones. Yeah, and that's just rough numbers, not
sure.
specific, but
For
yeah,
sure.
it's so much more nuanced than folks like to think. So that's
Yeah.
it. You got to get creative with it, and like I tell folks, I'm like, you just got to get in there, just start rotating some way, shape, or form. Start moving it, and then refine it. So you'll learn.
It's not an exact science, and I
No.
think that especially those of us educated through designated science. I mean, I have an animal science degree, so I was taught very specific in an equation format how things need to be, and then you come out here in nature and you're like, nature is not a scientific equation. It's just not, and you have to be flexible. And I think that can be more of a rewiring, but also just scary because I don't know what the outcome will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what's funny. It's like in this soil is just millions and millions of microbes, and it's such a complex system of how this whole thing works. And we want to reduce it with science and to explain it. It's like, we can't do that. We can't understand what is really going on.
Is it worth explaining or being explained?
I don't.
You know?
I mean, part of me is I have a big problem with the observation piece. So it's like, okay, well, the science tells you you have to do this and this and this, and don't do this. And it's like, okay, well, we've done this, and our observations tell us the exact opposite of what you're telling me to do. So observation is the most basic form of science.
Yeah.
If that's not agreeing with your results, then how am I supposed to agree with that? And you know, that's a big part of what we do is observation. I mean, we're not taking soil samples every year. We're not doing that. you know, we're watching the grass, we're watching the plants and the reaction, the animals, what's their body condition like? Are we seeing birds? Are we seeing insect? What's struggling? We can tell if an area is struggling, and then we'll go maybe research. But for the whole grand scheme of things, I mean, you can observe and learn and be able to adjust things in that sense, rather than have to have so much data points and this and that, and you miss the forest for the trees at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about the whole system and not just numbers on paper.
Is this something, this mindset, this ideology that you have right there, is that something that your dad taught you, or is that something that you've kind of come into on your own? Like, what is your education background on that?
I
I'm
think
curious.
that's, there's no education background to it. So,
Okay.
you know, that's kind of what I was talking about with earlier with creating your process. And so we kind of create our process through our observations, and then we know how this area is going to react based on how we graze it, because we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And we got a good idea. So whenever that reacts differently, then it's like, okay, what did we do wrong? And usually we start with, it's our fault. It's nothing else's fault, it's our fault. You know, as far as that goes, I think a lot of it has been the last few years viewing it more from an ecosystem standpoint of, you know, let's not worry about the weeds. Let's forget about them. Who cares? It's another plant. Like, the cows eat them, that's great. If not, then something's going on. And we've started viewing weeds as, you know, nature's way of kind of healing itself, because everything's got a purpose. So, you know, it might be something the cattle don't eat, but it's doing something in there, in that soil, you know, mineral-wise, it's chemical-wise, something like that. So, so there's some purpose behind it. But it's funny, one of our pastures borders a conventional pasture kind of deal. During the summer, it's just so much different, and there's birds and bugs and color and flowers and green, and just in comparison to a greenish gray.
Just over the fence line.
I mean, it's just life. It's just life. You just see life. So, you know, I've gone more to that thinking of like, okay, well, let's build as much life into this farm as we can, and then let's figure out how to make money on it. So, but if we're able to do that, it's gonna produce a better product. So that's what we've seen with our beef. It's such a better product. It's not even close. And it just goes all to the management. Like, that's all it is how we manage our grazing, the quality of the forage they're getting, which is ultimately the quality of the soil. So if you have good soil, it's going to produce good forage, which is going to produce good animals, which is going to help our bodies and help our nutrition. So, you know, it's a whole cycle. It's not, I struggle with the really nitpicking one part of it when it's a whole connection in there.
So we're pulling into the pasture to see your mama cows. This is your bread and butter. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's we've been at it for a while. It's kind of what our system still revolves around. I'd say it's probably the main focus animal-wise would be our cattle. And, you know, it's part of the soil and all that, and, you know, we have to manage that, but at the same time, we can still manage our genetics and, you know, produce very good cattle in that regard too. And then that soil should make them even better. This place is rough. So this whole farm was a dairy for a long time.
Okay.
And then God bought it, and they conventionally grazed Angus on here. This is relatively new ground back over here, to my understanding.
As far as being
as in
forested?
like the last 15, 20 years kind of deal.
It was like clear cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hay pastures before, because my dad, growing up, he'd tell stories. They'd come back here and pick hay up, and there's a dam on the creek down there, old stone dam there's still remnants of. So, you know, it's funny to hear those stories too, because it's just completely different now. But it really struggles back here production-wise. So this is where we just grazed on these two sides over here, and then we're over here now. We last came through here in November, so the regrowth isn't there, and it just takes time too. Like, you're not going to see instant results implementing this system. So, you know, our first step was, hey, let's just get in here and let's start grazing. So we had to use the creek for water access. So for this whole, whatever, 70 acres is over here, we had one water point of a creek.
Oh, wow.
So it was not managed too intensively.
Okay.
And then we got a black pipe to run from our well across the creek, so we got them out of the creek, and now we've been able to run black pipe all the way to here, so we've been able to section them off much tighter.
Yeah.
So it'll keep improving now. It should.
You want to get out and look at it?
Yeah.
So you come from your home place has been managed a certain way for a very long time now. And then you come over here and you said our first goal was to just be on it and we'll figure it out from there. So it just keeps coming up in every conversation I have with farmers of that instant gratification where we show up, we want it to be the beautiful Instagram worthy place. And you're like, it's just not.
No.
It's improving, but it's slow going. How do you handle that where you already were on a place that was established in regenerative grazing and the pastures were beautiful, the soil was healthy. Do you have to tell yourself like it's okay, we're still going?
Well, it's like we said earlier, it's the process.
Yeah.
So we know the process that works. Yeah. We know it works. We've done it. We've experienced it. We know the results from it. So let's implement the process. So when we get in here, we just got to start going with our process and you just keep plugging. And that's the thing. Like in the sports world, you don't look at the scoreboard each play.
Yeah.
So this is a play for us. Then this is a play for us. This is a play for us. We're not coming right back 2 days later and looking at the scoreboard of it.
Yeah.
We're looking at the scoreboard 3 years down the road, 4 quarters after the game's over. Okay, did our process work?
Right.
Did we do our job? Ultimately that's how we create that, and that's how you don't get discouraged with it too, because it's like it's not going to look good. We want to see it improving. Like there's little signs you can see that make it. You can tell it's getting better. Like this year, first time we found dung beetles in this pasture. We've seen vetch in here for the first time this year. We see a little more forage each year. So our weed population was very, very heavy dog fennel, but the dog fennel is getting smaller. It still comes back, but the height of it is shorter and it's not as dense. So we see little stuff like that over time, and it's like you'd come out here and be like, okay, well there's still dog fennel everywhere. It looks awful, but it's like, okay, but compared to 3 years ago, it looks a lot better.
Yeah.
So, in 3 more years, what's it gonna look like?
Yeah.
So that's more of how you gotta keep sticking to the process with it, and it'll turn itself around. So.
Yeah. So we talked about this being your bread and butter. So you've got the cows, this is just what you've done for so long.
Yeah.
You'll keep the steers basically on your market demand, and then you sell some steers, some heifers based on what you need on the farm. Is that like your major crop then?
Yeah.
You would say?
Yeah, this is our probably big income generator is our cows. South Poles are pretty high in demand right now, which it's really fun because we get to talk to people from all over the country looking for cattle.
Yeah.
And they come visit the farm and they want to see the cows and
they
see
look
how we
nice.
do things. And,
I really love their condition. I mean, even you saying you were in a drought last year, you had to feed more hay than you've ever had to, and just looking at them, I mean, they look good.
Yeah.
Your cows, their coats are good, their body condition score is good, their noses are good. I mean, they look healthy.
Yeah, and that speaks to the breed too.
Okay.
And that's why we chose the breed, because I mean, they're extremely hardy. Like to see them in December when they came off of here in the winter, I mean, they looked awesome. And it was like, that's what we're looking for.
On a place that's not established.
Yeah, you need cattle. Like if you're going to do a grass-based operation, you need cattle that are going to thrive in your environment. So if they're able to handle this poorer pasture on this section of our farm and produce calves and breed back on it and keep their body condition, I mean, what else are you looking for at that point?
Yeah.
So, we can overthink it and over-criticize it, which we do. We often do. We're our worst critics with our cattle. So.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they do really well, and we've been just tickled with them. So, and we basically built it up from those. We bought 10 heifers back in 2006, and we built it from there. So, there's a few add-ins in here from another farm, but other than that, it's pretty much been from our own stock, which is, I think that's very important. I think those are more environmentally adapted.
Yeah.
And we've noticed that when we bring an outside animal in, they struggle.
Okay.
But when it's one of our calves, they do great, and they don't have that struggle period.
Yeah. You said that find an animal that works well for you. If someone's coming into a new area, like say one day Paul and I are going to settle down, we're not going back to Indiana. So how would we decide the best animals to have on our farm? Is it just talking to the local farmers, or what do you recommend we would do?
I'd do your research. I'd talk locally, and I'd also talk nationally too. There's a lot of really smart people that have seen a lot more. You know, sometimes if you get in that local bubble, it's going to be what folks have done for a long time.
That's a good point.
So getting outside of that and challenging that thought process is important. So
it's like a give and take of the way we've always done it and what other people have tried elsewhere.
And you need to know the environment too. Like, is it hot, humid summers? Is it, you know, colder, harsher winters? What kind of breed is going to be more suited to that? So for us, our focus is the hot, humid summers and the fescue. So this breed does very, very well in that environment. But we've seen it adapt really well in other environments too. I mean, there's folks in Minnesota, I think they have them, South Dakota, like all over the country. They've really expanded. So we've seen good results in those areas too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're
like,
we
are
started
we
calving last week, so it's like Christmas coming out here. Except sometimes you're disappointed.
So do we have any new babies then?
I don't see any, so I think we're okay this morning. We got a few.
Oh, there's some tiny ones back there.
Well, yeah, there's some.
Oh, they're already tagged. Just kidding.
Yeah, they are.
So do you? I'll use a conventional term, but do you process the calves right away? Whereas it's ear tagging, checking on them, things like that, or do you wait a certain period before you do that?
We come out here during calving season. We'll come out here twice a day.
Okay.
And keep an eye on the ones we know are close. When they calve, we tag it and leave it alone. That's all we do. So we don't do anything else with them. It's on them. It's on their mamas to make sure that they can produce that calf. So
if something happens, do you start calling?
What do you mean by happens?
Like if the calf isn't thriving, if the mom's just like not taking to the calf right.
Oh yeah.
Do you start calling the mamas?
Yeah. We've had some before that didn't take their calf, and they go into our beef program. So that's a good avenue for our beef program, is that we can take our cull cows into that.
Yeah.
And instead of just taking them stockyard, we've got an avenue to increase our income off of them at the same time.
That's a good point.
And it's some of the best beef we've gotten is like 4-year-old mama cows.
I have heard that the best beef you will ever have is from an old dairy cow.
Yeah, it's
That's what I've heard. I'm curious to try.
We've had some good results. We've been pleased with any of our cull cows that we have.
Yeah.
They've always turned out well. But yeah, for us, the low maintenance side of calving is very important too.
So calving knees.
Yeah, and that's like our South Poles have been a huge difference. Since 2006, we've pulled 2 calves.
Wow.
So, and one of those was still alive, so
okay.
So we saved it. But
is that just your cow program? Is that your bull program? What do you think attributes to that?
Well, I mean, it's the breed. So
just
it's the low birth weights, just their maternal instincts. They're very hardy in that sense. We calve in the pasture in our rotations. Like, we don't change anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
They've got to keep up in that regard.
No, I think some people, and I kind of did this too, once they're close to calving, they like bring them up to the barn, put them in a different area, but you leave them in here. And I'm curious why, but I almost maybe have an answer that their adaptability needs to be there. But do you think that actually throws them out of sync? If you're like, no, we're going to pull you up to the barn and pamper you. And then they're kind of like, wait, what's going on? Why are you being weird?
And then all of a sudden you've disrupted their rumen and their forage and their nutrition as well. So, this is how they're meant to function in a herd, moving along just out in nature. A lot of folks calve in the spring because the deer have babies in the spring, and they're very similar in that. But I mean, you never seen a deer go up in a barn to have a baby. Why do we treat our cattle differently? They need to be able to make it in our system. And that's a big part of how we push them in that. And if they can't do that, then they're not going to stay here. But for the most part, all of them do very well in that regard.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's been pretty good. And we like their longevity too. So
how old do they typically get?
Oh, it just depends. There's the one with the tag in her in the right ear there. So she was born in 2008.
But the tag's gone? Like the tag is there, but the marking's gone?
Yeah. So she was born in 2008. She's our oldest one in here right now. We still have one of our originals from that we bought from Teddy's farm. She's 17 years old now.
Oh my gosh.
I guess she's about to be 18. But,
Where's she at?
she's at she's with our heifers. We pulled her
Okay.
out. She started moving slower, so we pulled her out, and we were like, well, we can use her in our heifer area to help kind of be a lead cow for them and provide some comfort there.
Does she still breed then?
Takes the stress off of her. Yeah, she's got a calf on her right now.
Okay.
And she should be bred from this past fall. So
Okay.
I mean, they just keep producing. So we keep them as long as they produce.
Yeah.
So her mom was one of the first ones we bought
Okay.
from Teddy. And then 111 back there is one of her daughters.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I see it in the
153
face.
right here is like a half sister to her.
Okay.
So you get those cow families, and that's what really gives you genetic impact in there. But because we got like her mama, she lasted till she was 17, so last year, and she couldn't hold a calf anymore. Her genetics are just, I mean, sprinkled all through our herd. Like, she's probably one of the more impactful mama cows we've had.
That's awesome.
On our female side. So it's fun I like looking through the genetic side of it too. I really get into that.
Yeah.
They
Very
do
cool.
well. And then you got like 255 here is going to be a first calf heifer.
Okay.
261's got a calf on her right now. She was a first calf heifer. So you got a wide range in here of ages as well. But they blend and they go. So low maintenance cattle. That's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been absolutely amazing, Josh. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got connected because we didn't find you through typical channels.
Yeah.
So being a friend of my aunt's, she's been telling me for years, she's like, you need to go over and see what they're doing. What they're doing is so cool. So I'm so glad that she's been telling me for so long to meet you. I'm so glad I got to meet you and check out your operation, learn a little bit more, and just be able to share that too with other people also. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. So like I said, have heard about Josh, been seeing him on Facebook and Instagram for quite a few years now, and to be able to be here and talk with him, I think is just so awesome. The insight he has about development coming in, it's a concern that a lot of farmers have, especially in these like kind of picturesque areas that people are moving to outside of Asheville, outside of Raleigh. It can make it hard on farmers, but I'm hoping that as he's seeing new farmers coming into the area, bringing new life in, that it's gonna be just a good part of it. So thanks for coming along with me today. If you haven't heard, we did start a Facebook group where we just want to keep going with the conversation. We want to talk to you, other farmers, consumers, people who are just curious. We just want to keep this conversation going and just keep talking about agriculture and farming and all the things that for us bring a lot of peace just walking out here in a field with a bunch of cows. So thanks for coming along today. We'll see you soon.